So while I'm making this video, the second round of the US Championship is underway, but it's in the early stages, so we're waiting for the games to go along. So I thought I'd finish looking at the first round by looking at perhaps one of the most exciting games. We did look at all the games by the top three, or the big three. And Wesley So was the only one to win his game, and the other winner from the first round came from this game. And this was between Alexander Onischuk with white and Onischuk-Akobian with black. So it opened with d4 and e6. So with e6, it's clear that Akobian doesn't mind playing the French defense. And, well, being from Armenian origin, that doesn't come as a surprise. You can find many Armenian players playing the French defense. And yeah, also I've seen some very nice lectures by Akobian on the St. Louis channel. But Onischuk goes with c4. Akobian, he's a very funny guy. He's played in the Reykjavik Open. Always very upbeat. And also I played football with him once, or what the Americans call soccer, at the Baku Olympiad. I was surprised to see that he was pretty good. We had some daily games there where grandmasters played. Even Magnus Carlsen played some games. Ludwig Hammer, plenty of guys. A very interesting experience. But okay, on to the game. So with c4, Akobian now plays f5. So e6 is a way to get a Dutch defense that you like, either the classical Dutch, or which would be knight f6 and d6 at some point, or the Stonewall with d5. And the point of this is to avoid some early anti-Dutch type lines. If we go back, if you go f5 immediately, you have to deal with bishop g5, you have to deal with the Staunton gambit, which is so annoying for many people, and you have to deal with like knight c3, all these different lines. So e6 kind of cuts back on the work that you have to do, and if you play the French, it's especially effective if you don't mind the French, so you avoid a lot of lines. But okay, on to the game, and we have after d5 the so-called Stonewall variation, and that name derives from the wall of pawns that this formation is forming. I'm gonna build a wall. I'm gonna build a wall. It's gonna be great. So black is building a wall. The downside, of course, is that he's weakening some black squares. So white will often try to occupy this e5 square or exchange the black squared bishops, because once black loses the black squared bishop, these holes will be even harder to protect. So okay, knight h3. This is an interesting idea, played in many Stonewall lines. And quite often the idea is to, after bishop d6, to exchange this bishop here with bishop to f4. Now, I think it's more common if you keep the knight back on d1, and then the idea, I think the strategical idea, if we just make a move, bishop f4, which wasn't played, let's say castles, let's say takes, which isn't a good move, because it just helps white develop this knight. So let's go even further back. Let's go where with knight c3. Okay, no, but yeah, if the knight is here, then we can play knight d2, knight f3, and focus on this e5 square, which I mentioned earlier, because now we would have two pieces focusing on the e5 square, and white would occupy it. So that's often the strategical idea with knight to h3. In this game, however, none of that really happens after bishop d6. Onischuk castles, and again here bishop to f4 is the most common move, but Onischuk goes for queen c2, and this must be a prepared line, and he did get a good position. Let's see what happened. Usually we don't see black breaking up a Stonewall unless it's for a good reason, and here black takes on c4, so it's breaking up his pawn formation. But if he can play e5, he's very happy, because he will open up for his pieces and he will have a nice solid position. So white must do something powerful here, and when you take on c4 you lose control over the e4 square, and this allows white to break with e4. And quite often, if white manages to break with e4, he's doing quite well. I can direct you to a nice game where white broke the Stonewall with e4, a game by Kramnik against Beliavsky. This has been covered on my channel. I will link to it in a card. A very nice game. So if you're interested in further study material on the Stonewall for white, how to play against it, it's a very nice game. Okay, I think this is actually quite interesting as well, and white gets a good position after e5. Okay, white is just threatening to play e5 on a piece, so this is kind of a forced move for black, e5. Now white takes on f5. And this looks scary. Okay, black takes, and he has these powerful pawns. But walking into the fork here with d3 is actually what white can do. And the point is that d3 is met with queen takes e4 check, and then we pick up this pawn. And notice that in chess there are always specifics. If we hadn't fianchettoed and this pawn here wouldn't be here, then black would have bishop takes h2 and the queen would drop. So there are always specifics with patterns in chess, and here they work out for white, so he can play this move knight to e2. Oops, that's not the board I wanted. So, okay, black has two pawns under attack, this one and this one. He prefers to keep the d pawn because, well, it's now protected, and the pass pawn. White plays the most natural move. He takes on c4 check. The computer likes knight e to f4 because we can take this pawn later. But okay, this can't be a bad move. Queen takes e4, king to h8. And here, if you look at the play in such a way for white, I think that b4 is a very interesting move for white here. Immediately trying to break up these strong pawns here. Now if white takes, we play knight takes d4, and this knight is very well placed, jumping in here, protecting this pawn. And black will have some problems with development. This hasn't moved, and the bishop is protecting this pawn. Very strong bishop for white here, so interesting idea probably for white to play like this. But instead he went for a very tempting move, knight g5. I mean, eyeing both e6 and f7, so this must be a very tempting move, but probably it lets black in the game a little bit. So b4 was probably the way to go. Now black gets on with development. It's hard really to do anything about this f7 threat. I mean, bishop f4 is coming, knight f4, rook e1. So you have to get on with development, and that's what Akobian does. He was also getting a bit down on the clock here, about half an hour behind on the clock, and now bishop f4. Developing. Black can't really take because then this knight is jumping to f4 and we have this square here. So black simply gets on with development, bishop takes f5. Getting an extra pawn, but of course he has to sacrifice the exchange here. Knight f7, and black has to take. The queen is attacked. But there's no small mate because the knight and the rook are covering, so if we go for the small mate, then knight takes g8 at the end and the rook is covering f7. But the queen is under attack, so black has to take anyway. Queen takes f7. Now we can't allow this, so rook to b8. White takes on c6. And rook f to e1. Okay, going for the open file, trying to get some play against the black king. But black has a trump, a d pawn, and he starts pushing it. And here is one of the critical points of the game. White played bishop takes d6. Probably he should have played rook a to d1. Trying to introduce his last piece, get it into the game. And he can do this because d takes e2 allows him to take here. And he's winning some time. In some cases we can even take here. And we can also neutralize this pawn. So this would have won some time. Perhaps the critical line is rook takes b2. And then we take. But knight f4. And now with the rook off the back rank we have a threat here. And white is winning some time. And he's covering the queening square for now. In the game, white had more problem with the queening square after bishop takes d6. Queen takes d6. Knight c3 and now d2 by Akobian. This rook must move, so rook e7 with a mate threat on g7, so rook g8 is forced, more or less. And now rook takes a7. Another idea perhaps was just to play king to g2, so that we have f3 available if black is going for bishop g4, trying to cover the queening square. So yeah, I don't know which one is better. Rook takes a7 at least, you know, introduces a trump later in the game to push the a pawn. But it's not all clear, because now bishop g4, and this has become a threat. What do we do about it? Onischuk went with queen to e7, but this seems to almost lead to a forced line for black. Queen takes e7 was played, rook takes e7, and knight d5. Now the problem is, if you take, so we get the variation board, if you take, I take with a pawn, and then queenie next move, and I'm up a piece. So you can't do that. And here, Onischuk had to find f3. This would have given him chances to fight, because, okay, if you take on e7, I take here, and then I will most likely win this pawn. And if you take on f3, I have opened up access to this d7 square, and should be doing okay here, because now we're covering the queening square. If takes, we can just sacrifice here, and the rook ending should be close to drawn. But instead, Onischuk missed something, and he played rook to e2, and this is the losing blunder. It looks okay if we look at some alternatives to what Akobian played. If he takes the rook, then knight takes e2, and this rook is coming, and we're going to win this pawn. It's good for white. If knight takes c3, rook takes d2. Okay, now black has two pieces for the rook, but we do have an extra pawn, and again this becomes a trump, Donald Trump even, and these are quite weak. So white would be doing quite okay here as well. However, black has a very strong move that wins on the spot, and that move is, can you find it? Pause the video and find it if you haven't. The winning move that led to immediate resignation was d1 queens. Very nice move by Akobian. And what's the point of this? First of all, if rook takes, we just take here. We're up a clear piece. Okay, one pawn, but up a piece and landing, completely winning. And rook takes d1 allows knight takes c3, and we're going to be up a piece. So we take here, and this is easily winning. So after d1 queens, resignation by Onischuk, and an excellent start for Onischuk-Akobian, winning with the black pieces against a very strong veteran player, Alexander Onischuk. So yeah, that wraps up the first round. So I'm excited to see what happens in the second round. I see I just missed Fabiano in the booth. So I'm going to look at that, and hopefully come at you later tonight with some second round games, hopefully exciting ones. See you then. Bye bye.